Hey everybody, welcome back. I'm Marvin Perkins.
And I'm Cardon Ellis.
With Blacks in the Scriptures, and glad you guys can join us again. And we had some questions that come in that we actually wanted to take, and one of them, Cardon, was about mission presidents. And the question was mission presidents and why aren't more or when are more of these mission presidents going to start sharing some of the stuff from our videos and the things that we share? And tell me about your mission president, by the way. You remember?
Well, Argentina doesn't allow black people in their country, so it wasn't really a big problem. Actually, in all honesty, okay, they're not that bad.
I've never seen a black person before.
But you're right. Sorry. Well, we can't call them African American because they would be what, African Argentinian?
But they can be of African descent.
They can be of African descent. But aren't we all?
Absolutely.
There we are. Okay.
Absolutely. And that's what brings us all back together.
So they weren't people whose skin keratin levels were darker than mine as I physically observed them with my ocular nerve endings.
Okay. So
is that a politically correct way of saying it?
Either that or a shorter way of saying it, they weren't melanin wealthy.
They weren't melanin wealthy. Okay. All right. Okay.
Beautiful.
Actually, I served in Argentina and I only saw two melanin wealthy people down there. One was a Uruguayan that had moved to Argentina.
Yeah.
And he was notorious as like the melanin wealthy person in the pueblo, as it's called down there. And then also there was another who was from the French Caribbean who was a tourist.
All right.
But other than that, everybody is of Spanish and of Italian descent. So you don't have much of an issue there. My mission president was avant-garde at the time, so I'm sure he would have adopted it, but that wasn't a thing on my mission.
Yeah. I think the first problem, and I'm really glad you brought up that point, because most people think just because there aren't people of African descent there, we really don't have to discuss this. Well, actually, ask anybody in the mission, ask anybody in your stake to give you an accurate answer to the questions here, and they won't be able to. So this is a doctrine issue. It's really not a race issue.
I would say, though, that I am bewildered by the fact that there are not mission presidents, especially in North America, in Western Europe, and obviously in Africa, that are not actively pursuing and coordinating with the African American Outreach Program, especially considering the statistics of success that you have already had in North America.
Absolutely.
And the statistics from what I saw Africa, where if the
islands, all over.
Are you done interrupting me?
I'm sorry. It's a habit. So anyway. It's a habit I learned at home.
So anyway, weren't you telling me that there was a survey done where when they interviewed the few measurable quantifiers that there are of spirituality, that the African American community was the most ready to adopt 3 out of 5 of those measurable quantifiers? And if we actively targeted the African American melanin worthy, according to my ocular nerve endings, community, that we would be considered actually an African American church because we had so much success within 10 years.
So why don't we talk about that on the next podcast?
Okay,
because we can do a whole podcast on that alone. But
it's very avant-garde on this side of the screen. But
I do want to talk a little bit about the mission presidents, because you're absolutely right. There are quite a few mission presidents that have really embraced this, and if they've done so, we've been able to easily quadruple their baptisms in their area. And so, but I think the thing that people don't understand about mission presidents kind of remind me a little bit about like parenting. Mm-hmm. There are some parents that really, really want to be parents, and they are either trying to be parents or they adopt to be parents. And then there are people that, we're pregnant.
Yeah.
And so
maybe I can relate to that. No, I'm just kidding.
I don't think so. I hope not.
Hashtag just saying.
All right. But the thing is the thing that people don't understand about mission presidents is that mission presidents are sitting home doing nothing. They're not applying for missionary service. They are sitting at home going about their business, and they get a call. And they respond to that call and say, yeah, I'll do that. But they might not really have the heart to do missionary work. They might not really have...
but to make it through that vetting process, they have to be.
Well,
for every one mission president that gets called, there's like 12 that get suggested and interviewed. So I find it difficult to believe that they don't want to be there. I think they may have poor coping mechanisms.
No, and I'm not saying don't want to be there, because if they're there, they want to be.
Yeah, okay.
But what I'm saying is this, is that you have people that are going out there really fighting to be prepared to be parents. They're learning, they're studying, they're doing everything they can. You know, a few of my friends have tried the in vitro, everything they can, adoption, just going through all of those lengths to try to be parents. Now, you've got the same amount of people going out there doing that for missionary work, trying to be missionaries and going on couples missions and seniors missions over and over and over again. Now, all I'm saying is I'm trying to draw a distinction between those two, because people have this expectation, I think, of mission presidents that I think is a little unfair. And it's one of those things where they're expecting them to be 100% on the missionary, but no, maybe they're just 100% on the obedience. They called me, and I want to be obedient to the call, and I'm going to go out there and do the best that I can.
All right.
And so some of those are still embracing what we're doing very, very well. Quite a few have it on the approved viewing list. We're doing firesides all over the place, and the missions and the missionaries are involved.
It's good to hear.
But some of those, I guess what happens is that some of these families would love to see all of the mission presidents using this.
So, like, why don't we just do like a MTC day or something like that? See, the only thing I don't get is that, like, the blacks in the priesthood thing cuts to the core of what Mormonism is. We believe we have prophets, but the prophets are not infallible. So how can you tell the difference between, when a prophet is guiding you Moses style or when he's messing up Moses style? You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And so that is only answered by personal revelation. That's why we raise our right hand and we sustain the prophets instead of just accepting their calling. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
And in order to sustain them, you have to have a spiritual confirmation that you actually know that they are indeed guiding you. I think if more people would have prayed about Brigham Young back in the 1830s, we may not have been saddled with the priesthood ban that is what we're still talking about today. So anyway, I cannot believe personally, if I were in charge of the missionary program, one of the first things I do is talk about this, and then I would send like crazy you and your coordinators out there. I mean, if we're in the business of bringing people unto Christ, and the worth of souls is great, I would be flooding these communities because, like, honestly, dude, black people are awesome and they're pretty receptive to the gospel. Like, I mean, you go to some of these places and you tell them, melanin wealthy people are very receptive to the gospel, and you go into a lot of these communities and they don't have that foolish pride of economic status in some of these places that I've been to, that I've helped out, that is really honestly inhibitor to the people that you would consider more wealthy on economic terms. And their culture is much more like, let's go to church on Sunday. They're early adopters of this idea that you're going to go to church on Sunday. And they're very receptive, and they're wonderfully spiritual members. We've got multiple members in our stake, and they're all awesome. Even the guy in the Navy. You know what I'm saying?
Even that guy.
Yeah, he's super nice. You wouldn't think he was like a sergeant or something? Like, he's like, but he's super nice.
I love it. But the study that you're talking about, there were 12 spirituality categories measured, and African Americans ranked number 1 in 7 of the 12. So by far the most receptive to the gospel. I mean, you hear it every time there's an acceptance speech. As a matter of fact, we saw some high school players that had gotten drafted into college. They were the top players.
Yeah, that happened to me once.
And I had my family sitting around, and I said, "Okay, let's listen." And every last one of the African American kids wanted to thank God first.
Yeah, I know. Every last
one. And then the other kids were very gracious in their acceptance. And I think maybe there was one other. Maybe 2, but 100% of the African American kids, thank God. So again, if we sincerely applied what we have, we can sincerely increase what we have. And
so why aren't they doing it?
Well, we've got
names, Marvin. I want names, missions, and dates.
Oh man! So I've got to tell you,
we're gonna do the liberal thing and shame them via the internet until they are in submission.
No. Everything is done in love. Everything is done in love. Everything is done in love. So before we close, I'll tell you a story about a mission president down in New Orleans, but I won't tell you the year because I don't want you to be able to identify.
There is a house down in New Orleans. They call the rising sun. Oh, come on, man. That's like your generation. I was so trying.
Hey, man.
I was trying to cross the generation gap. You know, we're about building bridges in Blacks in the Scriptures.
Okay, so...
And I tried to go back 60s style, and it just didn't work.
So you need to not only cross a generation, but the tracks as well, because because if you talking OJ's Temptations or something like that.
Hey, what about Sweetback's BA song?
Wow.
That's 1973.
Okay, we should probably...
That's the very first exploitation film out there.
We should probably just stick to this. What we're doing right here.
Okay, fine. Keep going.
See, this is the beauty of this work. It brings completely different cultures together. Other than this,
that
we'd
cinema
have
was the first
nothing
Black
in common.
independent film, man. It's like legendary. That's Quentin Tarantino history right there.
All right. Black Belt Jones, man. All right.
Okay, cool. Right.
But anyway, mission president, New Orleans. Again, whenever I go to a new city, whatever I'm doing, even on business, when I have my time off, I pray about where to go and what to do.
Cool.
And so who I can help. And so with that in mind, he led me to a couple missionaries, and I started teaching them, wanted to get more involved, and they started to get more involved. But one of them said, I got to call the mission president. So he called the mission president. And as we're teaching, the mission president calls in. And he wants to talk to me. And okay, I don't want you teaching missionaries. And
He's going to regulate.
He is, but and you can understand it.
Hey,
too,
I just
right?
crossed the tracks on that one. That was an early 90s reference. Regulate, Warren G.
Appreciate it.
Oh, okay.
Appreciate it.
Keep going.
Yeah. And Justin, that reference was for you, Warren G., your next door neighbor. All right, but one of our coordinators lives right next door to Warren G.
Oh, rock on.
So,
you can watch the podcast.
Exactly.
We'll get Warren G on the show.
I love it. But anyway, the long and short of it is you can understand, he doesn't know who I am. And he's telling me that. I don't know who you are. And I said, well, I tell him who I am. And then I said, well, you can just also Google my name as well. And that might be able to give you some comfort. And then he says, okay, well, I just don't want you teaching them right now. And I said, okay, that's fair. I can abide by that. And I said, well, why don't you and I meet?
Okay, that's fair.
And he says, well, I'm a little far away. And I said, well, I'll drive to where you are. And, well, I'm busy.
Okay.
I'm busy. I said, well, I'll tell you what, at least I'll just drop a DVD off for you.
Yeah, what was he saying he was busy with?
Well, probably missionary work.
Okay. Because I was going to say, for 3 years, you're on the hook, man.
But,
you know what I'm saying?
Well, again.
We're all busy, dude, but you're like busy with like what I'm calling you on the phone about busy.
The interesting thing about it is during this conversation, they're trying to increase their missionary work, and I have exactly what it's going to take to more than quadruple it.
Okay, so what he
and
said?
Yet it's that kind of resistance a bit. And so he said, what DVD is that? And I said, Blacks in the Scriptures. He said, oh, I have that DVD.
Sweet.
And I said, well, what do you think of it? Mm-hmm. He said, I absolutely loved it. This is exactly what we need. I have a testimony of the stuff that's in there. I prayed about it, had a testimony yet. And I said, so why aren't you sharing it with the missionaries? And he said, well, because I went to the 70 and asked him if I had permission. And the 70 says, well, why don't we just stick with the church materials? Well, at that point, he could have said, it's coming directly from the Scriptures.
That
so
is
these
the
really
church materials. By the way, this is Mormonism, where like the cardinal rule, okay, I mean, there's Jesus Christ, there's Joseph Smith, there's the Trinity, there's all these great columns of our faith. And then right underneath it, I think, is the rule that you ask forgiveness before you ask permission. Probably should be canonized as like the sixth book of the
kind of a
Standard
departure from what I'm thinking. So, but here's my point. My point is this, is that he had the opportunity to bring so many souls unto Christ. He is home from his mission right now. And I bet this is one of his biggest regrets, because he had a testimony of the work. He had in his hand the tool that was going to help. He didn't realize that it was me on the phone talking, the same guy that's on Blacks in the Scriptures. And I really never kind of pointed that out to him, because that's not important. What's important is actually the doctrine that's there, the Scriptures that are there. And so the long and short of it is that it's that regret that we're trying to avoid. We're trying to help people not only bring souls unto Christ, but to help those to avoid that regret. Simply pray about it. And I think this guy is at home from his mission now, and I think he's really having a tough time with the number of souls he could have brought unto the gospel, unto Christ. Would he have?
Especially in New Orleans, man. That's fertile soil.
They need it desperately.
Yeah. Good people down there.
All right. So why don't we close here? And we've got more stories from New Orleans. Remember the guy who pulled the gun on me?
They're the
came
Saints.
to rob me at gunpoint?
You got robbed at gunpoint?
He came to rob me at gunpoint. No, it's not sweet. But
Well,
we'll
you're
talk
right. Probably
about
not for you, but I mean, that's a cool story. I can't wait for the next podcast.
We'll talk about it on another podcast. All right. For Blacks in the Scriptures, I'm Marvin Perkins.
For melanin-rich people in the scriptures, I'm Cardon Ellis.
God, I love it. See you next time. Don't forget to subscribe and share.